Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Donald Trump loomed large over the final Republican debate ahead of the Iowa caucuses, which are on Monday, despite not even being part of the debate or on stage. Mr. Trump decided to boycott last night's Fox News debate after the channel refused to drop its host, Megyn Kelly, whom Mr. Trump had accused of bias towards him in a previous debate. We have the same problem with cabinet ministers and shadow cabinet ministers here on the Daily and Sunday Politics. Anyway, here's a flavour of the action.
Let's address the elephant not in the room tonight. Donald Trump has chosen not to attend this evening's presidential debate.
I'm a maniac, and everyone on this stage is stupid, fat, and ugly. And Ben, you're a terrible surgeon. Now that we've gotten the Donald Trump portion out of the way,
I kind of miss Donald Trump. He was a little teddy bear to me. We always had such a loving relationship during these debates and in between and the tweets. I kind of miss him. I wish he was here.
Well, that's the last debate before the people of Iowa go to vote on Monday, and Mr. Trump wasn't there, but he did hold his own rally in honor of war veterans. Let's have a look at that.
I didn't want to be here, I have to be honest. I wanted to be about 5 minutes away. And I've enjoyed that. All the online polls said I've done very well with that, with the debates. And I've had a kick with it. But you have to stick up for your rights. When you're treated badly, you have to stick up for your rights. You have to do it. And you know what? I don't know. Is it, for me personally, a good thing, a bad thing? Will I get more votes? Will I get less votes? Nobody knows. Who the hell knows? But it's for our vets, and you're going to like it because we raised over $5 million in one day. Over $5 million.
Donald Trump. Joining me now, Matt Fry, formerly of this parish, now with Channel 4 News. He's just done a documentary about Donald Trump, which aired on Channel 4 earlier this week. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Is it not remarkable that Donald Trump has gone from the man that had no chance to the man that the Republican establishment now needs to stop?
It is extraordinary. I mean, he has taken the Republican rule book. And as you know, Andrew, Republicans like elections to be sort of organized. There's a corporatist sort of boardroom rule to things. You know, we'll give John McCain a chance in 2000, but ultimately George W. Bush is our guy. You know, this doesn't work anymore. The first person to rip up that rulebook was Sarah Palin. Now, when she appeared in 2008 and basically screamed at lots of white men in red ties, and of course the red tie is the Republican tie in America, their faces blanched because they thought, oh my God, we need this woman on our side, but she's going to completely destroy our assumptions. That then was forgotten for 8 years, and now Sarah Palin has come back with a vengeance in the form of Donald Trump, who basically, although he is a billionaire, and although he only ever flies into these events with his private jet and flies out again so he can spend the night in his penthouse in Trump Towers on Fifth Avenue, basically, because he says things that people are afraid to say, politicians and ordinary voters, because he embodies the American dream, and because he's not a politician, is able to convince people that one day they can be like him, or at least that he's going to kick sand into the establishment's face.
And he is a consequence, like I would suggest Bernie Sanders on the Democrat side, who is probably the most left-wing candidate for the Democratic nomination since Mr. McGovern in 1972, of an anger on Main Street in America, of a feeling particularly among working-class whites, what the Americans call middle-class whites, that they've not had a fair deal, that the world is passing them by, that the country's changing in ways that they don't like.
Absolutely. I mean, you hear this anger over and over again. And of course, you could argue, hang on a minute, what's with the anger? I mean, your country is growing faster than any other developed economy. Unemployment has gone down to 5.3%, which is quite astonishing. You could have had a Great Depression, but you only got a slightly great recession, which is now gone. But people feel angry, partly because actually, even though they have a job, it's not paying great wages. They're still kind of almost underwater with their mortgage.
There's been a squeeze on middle incomes in America,
Absolutely, there's been
there?
a massive squeeze. And so a lot of people, especially white, middle class, lower middle class, working class Americans, feel that history has basically gone off on a different track and they're being left behind. And those are the people that Trump, despite his bombastic wealth, is able to plug into. And every time he opens his mouth, it says something that is abrasive, says something that crosses a political line that no other candidate in history would have dared to cross. His poll ratings go up. And the more we attack him or other people attack him, they go up even further.
But the problem the Republicans face, I would suggest, is that popular as Mr. Trump may prove to be with the Republican selectorate of those in the caucuses and in the primaries, when you look at his poll ratings in the wider American electorate that he needs come November of this year, his poll ratings are negative.
They are. I mean, the Republicans are caught with an albatross around their neck called Donald J. Trump because it's like a train crash. They're watching the train crash. The train crashes. Trump becomes the nominee. We cannot stop this wave of anger that comes into its own in the primaries. He will be the nominee and then he will lose against Hillary. But the problem is the Democrats have a similar problem. Their albatross is called Hillary Clinton because perhaps not a little, she's a little albatross, but she's still an albatross.
Yes.
And that's why Bernie Sanders is doing
And
quite well.
some Democrats were saying to me that no Democratic frontrunner has gone into the primary season with such negative ratings in recent times, modern times, than Hillary Clinton. But this isn't just an American phenomenon, I would suggest. We have Marine Le Pen leading the polls in France now. We have a hard-right government in power in Poland. We have the Sweden Democrats, the Swedish Democrats, not the Social Democrats, the Sweden Democrats, third largest party now in Sweden, and Jeremy Corbyn, leader of the Labour Party in Britain. You could see all of that as a revolt against the mainstream.
Yeah, and the rise of Nigel Farage a few years ago, because I think Western economies are changing. There is a crisis in capitalism when wages are very low, and yet a company like Google can get away with making a vast profits and pay very little tax. And I think people have good reason to be angry.
Because they feel the system isn't working for them.
Because it's not. But it's how you hit out and where you go. And I find, certainly with Donald Trump, it's rather ironic you have a billionaire who isn't known for paying high wages or having good employment conditions in his hotels and the rest of his empire, is somehow presenting himself as the champion of Main Street, white
the suspension
collar,
of disbelief by American voters is extraordinary.
But there's a difference in American culture, even among the kind of the poorer white, working class, middle class whites in America. Very different from here. In this country, we'd be very suspicious of a multimillionaire that he would be in tune. In America, they take the view, it means he can't be bought. The special interest he's got his own money.
He's repeatedly made that point. He's repeatedly made that point, and there's a point that's been made, I think, on behalf of Zach Goldsmith in the London mayoral candidacy. You can't, but actually, there's no evidence at all.
It doesn't work in the same way in this country.
Yes, there's no evidence whatsoever that rich people can't be bought. Quite the contrary.
Of course not, I understand that.
But what is interesting, again, I say this suspension of disbelief and this willingness to sort of believe that anybody who just says the right things, who shouts out, I hate Washington, I hate mainstream, that they will therefore help the little people, for once.
But also, there's a well-worn path in American politics, going back in history, for the populist candidate who rises up like this and then flames. So Charles Lindbergh, Henry Ford, Randolph Hearst. I mean, these people come out of the woodwork. They have a lot of money in all those cases. They capture people's imagination and then they flame. But I'm not sure that that's going to work this time round.
Yeah, it's less certain.
And ultimately, I think this vote in the general election, assuming for a minute that Trump will get the nomination, comes down to two things. Or rather to one question. Who's more likely to get voters off their couches to vote? The Democrats, the Latinos, the Hispanic population, which is enormous, but doesn't tend to vote, but now have every reason to vote because they're afraid of getting deported or their relatives getting deported, or poor white men who are watching daytime television maybe because they haven't got a job and not particularly
But then you've got the issue
educated.
of the moderate vote in the centre ground and the possibility that Michael Bloomberg, of course, the former mayor of New York, might go in. Again, another billionaire going in as the centre ground
and
candidate.
he only works if it is Trump versus Sanders.
Yes.
Otherwise,
it doesn't work.
Hillary's gone.
And he's not going to do it either.
Just quick word on mark our card on the Monday night. The fact is the Iowa caucuses don't really matter very much. They're rarely an indicator, but it gives you a bit of momentum going into New Hampshire. The big danger is Mr. Trump comes out of New Hampshire down to the south with momentum.
You call it a danger, it's an opportunity, Mr.
I was meaning I meant for the GOP
BBC bias,
establishment.
BBC bias.
Because if I just finish, the GOP establishment now seems to me to be putting its hopes on Senator Rubio. And in the polls at the moment, his home state's Florida, Trump is 18 points ahead of Senator Rubio.
I think your analysis is spot on, apart from one thing.
Yep.
Trump rises on the assumption, on the aura that he's invincible, that he can say whatever he likes. And he's going to prevail. Now, if he loses Iowa, even though the last two candidates who've won Iowa have disappeared from, a witness protection program almost immediately.
And Mike Huckabee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
But
exactly.
so you're right.
Them.
But
I'm saying that if he doesn't,
exactly. that he's not invincible.
Yeah, exactly. He's
Very
not invincible.
interesting. Now, your documentary on Trump's gone out already.
It has.
But it's available on the All Four player.
The All Four catch-up player, which I should know the exact
but
whatever.
Still, the equivalent of the
you can watch it on the computer.
I've got it on my.
Very good it was too.
I like the fact you don't know the name.
I'm in a lot of trouble now.
And I will be watching it this weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to see you.